Ted DiBiase Jr., he has been formally charged in a welfare scandal that was the same welfare scandal that you might have heard of months ago that involved Brett Favre. Now, I actually did hear that it involved Ted DiBiase Sr. months ago when it was fodder on late night television because they couldn't not have the opportunity to obviously show a man whose gimmick, or any wrestler's gimmick. Let's just say if you're a wrestler and you then get in trouble, late night television is going to then find some sort of fun and parody in the gimmick. For example, Ted DiBiase being $1 million man and, flaunting all his money. Well, you better just hope that in the future that stuff doesn't come back to haunt you. But as of right now, Ted DiBiase Sr. is not charged, but his son, Ted DiBiase Jr., has been in a welfare fraud scandal in Mississippi. Now, those who haven't really been following along, Ted DiBiase, since his time in WWE, has kind of gone along his father's path. He has been involved heavily in their church. He's been heavily involved in camps and stuff with school-age kids, whether it be coaching and ministries and all these religious properties down in Mississippi and the South. Well, he's been formally charged and his dad has been ordered to pay back $722,000 as a civil lawsuit, but hasn't been formally charged in this current lawsuit, while Ted DiBiase Jr. has been alleged to receive over $3 million in federal anti-poverty funds to conduct leadership training through Priceless Ventures and to support inner city youth through this program.
I got to stop you there. Priceless, man. I guess the price was less because obviously the services were not provided, and that means he took that $3 million that was supposed to be for services that he did not render. So that's
essentially, Brett Favre, Ted DiBiase Jr., and Ted DiBiase Sr. and others essentially said, hey, government, can we have this money? We want it to be put towards, our programs. I know it's supposed to be for food stamps and welfare and stuff like that, but it's going to be towards our programs. But unfortunately, they didn't. Most likely, they just funneled the money through those programs and didn't offer the services essentially that they provided, saying, hey, why don't you give that $3 million to our church, and in tune we're just going to be $3 million richer and not really essentially do anything with the $3 million. That's giving back. No giving back.
Yeah, you're
part.
Not doing any good with that money. You're just lining your own pockets. That's just.
I mean Brett Favre. He used some of that money to help fund a $5 million volleyball facility at his alumni campus of Southern Mississippi University.
Yeah, well, not only is he alumni, but he's also his daughter played volleyball there as well.
Again, if you want to do that, that's fine, but you can't do that right after you. And it's similar to the Vince McMahon situation where Vince McMahon was spending money, but at the same time they had to look into it. Well, whose money were you spending when it comes to, Vince McMahon paying off people to shut their mouth?
I guess the difference, though, is Brett Favre paid the money back reportedly.
So that's probably why Brett Favre maybe isn't in jail at this time. Right now, Ted DiBiase is looking at potential jail time.
I heard some long numbers. In the double digits is what I was reading. So I saw a 20 in there. I feel like I saw a 20-year.
I think I saw that in relation to like probation. I'm not necessarily sure what the numbers are in terms of.
I'm curious to see if he's actually gonna serve.
And I guess it's kind of strange. You don't see this kind of stuff happening too much. Ted DiBiase Jr. for the most part and his dad, because of their kind of background. I mean, not saying that they're not criminals in some way, but other than that, they weren't the controversial type. They were pretty clean when it comes to their character and stuff like that. We don't have any Ted DiBiase road stories, I guess is the best way to put it.
No, we definitely don't. And I always wondered why he wouldn't like kick the tires on a return to WWE, and obviously why. Apparently.
I mean, he left pretty young. Now, I'm not saying that when he left it was necessarily voluntary. Everyone's contract comes to an end and they move along, but with WWE, if you're still young enough, you find your way coming around again. And with a lot of people, when you're not with WWE, you find yourself wrestling, which Ted DiBiase necessarily didn't do. He's like, all right, well, I'm going to use this time to go a completely other route.
Yeah, to each his own, I guess. And obviously he was, they were doing some shady things, But obviously, until they got caught, they had a lot of money.
It would have been way better if his dad would have used some of this money or asked for some of this money back in the late 90s when his dad started up the WXO wrestling company, because that could have clearly used millions of dollars. I don't know if you're familiar with the WXO.
No, I'm not.
It existed in late 90s, early 2000s. It's one of those, there's other YouTubers out there who cover it much more extensively than me, but it is just one of those many failed wrestling companies that, I'm not saying they're trying to do the AEW route, but they were trying to do the television route, trying to do the let's be different, let's be an alternative, not, with the production values of WWE or anything like that, but something, similar to what the football leagues we start. Hey, we're not going against WWE, but we can still be on syndication on Sunday nights for an hour, and maybe we'll be your cup of tea. Unfortunately, WXO Wrestling was very heavily based on Ted DiBiase. It was Ted DiBiase's company, and one thing Ted DiBiase, and I think other people tried at this time because WWE, as we remember, was in the midst of the Attitude Era and kind of turning some people off, maybe some families away. So people thought, like Ted DiBiase, that there was a niche audience that was looking for the wholesome return of professional wrestling to the family-friendly roots. But, and I'm not here to knock religious stuff too much so, but, here's my issue. The religious stuff, whether it be movies or music or professional wrestling in this standpoint, they try to do the alternative of saying, hey, we're not going to have some of the negatives of blockbuster movies that are rated R, or professional wrestling that is very scandalous. The problem is, though, they don't necessarily, as I just mentioned, have the funding to do it at the same production level. So yes, your Batman or superhero movie may not have all the cuss words and the violence, but it's also solely missing the production. So WXO wasn't WWE's production, but without all the scandalous sex and violence, it was low production, and that is obviously what hurts them in the end. These Kirk Cameron movies, I'm not watching them because I go, oh, well, because they're religious. I'm not watching them because they're not good movies. And WXO was not good wrestling, was not good production.
Obviously, it wasn't good across the board because I honestly had no
idea
lasted.
They existed. It was one of those that all the episodes were taped, I think, in one or two tapings. And, when you watched it, they never really gave off where they were from. It was like, just that syndicated kind of wrestling. They never took it on the road. They never did any of that stuff.
Any stars come from it?
I believe there was some people that were there. It was mostly has-been people, I want to say. It was mostly stars on their way out that I remember.
Like maybe some stars from like the 80s and 90s.
Yes. It was low production. And did you ever buy any of those VHS tapes or DVDs back in the day that would have like Mr. Perfect on it, and it'd be like International Wrestling Federation Battle Down Under, and you'd be like, $1, I'll watch this, and it would be some like low end, you don't even know the company, some sort of crap wrestling. Where was this even filmed?
Yeah, it was just bad.
Yeah, WXO, like I said, they filmed like 4 1-hour episodes maybe, and then kind of went like it was on syndication, and it was locally, it was on like UPN.
I do have to say though, and not to go too far off the topic, because I know you mentioned the football companies. XFL, for what it's worth, has been doing okay.
And it's funny you say that, because I will say this much, and I did actually look briefly at the USFL, and what I mean, I looked briefly at it. I meant I looked at like
a promo,
like the tickets and stuff. Yeah. And I stand by what I'm saying. Listen, the XFL, sure, they're doing all right, whatever, to what they are.
Good for them though.
But the USFL, I will say, I don't. So the USFL, here's what I'm going to, I guess the point I'm trying to make. This past weekend, I think they kicked off. It was either this weekend or the previous weekend. And I turned it on and I noticed that Memphis was hosting, because they're doing that again where they're hosting games at specific sites. But this had a Memphis-based team in it. So Memphis was essentially playing at Memphis. So you have that appeal. This isn't Birmingham versus New York in Memphis. This is Memphis team in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl. I noticed that when they did certain cutaways, one entire half of the stadium was empty. Very much WWE style, television only, right? And I went and looked at tickets. All tickets are $10. All tickets are $10, and they only sell one side of the stadium.
Interesting.
And that is the side. So and again, that side of the stadium is still not full by any stretch of the imagination. I would probably say that in the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, for a game that had Memphis as the team, and the first game too, so all the eyeballs be very curious of what our team looks like here in Memphis. Who are our guys? What are we competing like?
0.25% of the stadium?
I mean, we're talking 10,000 maybe in a 60,000 seat stadium.
Wow.
Yeah.
1/6. Wow.
And again, listen, and these things can exist. That's fine. But I mean, I don't understand how they exist on the scale of like, this is on NBC. This is on Fox. I don't get it. And I don't understand anything related to the spring football. Sure, it's successful to a degree, but I mean, the road comes to an end somewhere, and it's going to come to an end for the XFL, and it's going to come to an end for the USFL.
I would say this, based on what I've seen, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like I've seen enough of the games, and I've seen enough of like the reception on social media, and I mean, if anybody's got a shot, I feel like XFL's got a shot to stick around for a little bit. I mean, The Rock is putting a lot of work into this. He's really, the product is actually halfway decent. It's not the NFL, not anything. No, nobody's the NFL besides the NFL, obviously. That's why they're the National Football League. But for what it is as an alternative in the offseason of the NFL, it's not bad.
It is kind of like alternative is kind of even so, because you got to admit, and here's where these things all come to an end, okay? Because they are not exactly what they are. They are not minor league systems, okay? They're not affiliated officially with the National Football League.
I mean, they're minor leagues, but they're not. They're technically are.
So
but
where that hurts is that any player who plays for any of these teams is going to go to the NFL at first chance. So anybody who is any good, so you always are going to have NFL rejects, because if this person can play in the NFL, they're going to play in the NFL. Their goal, even as I saw, I know there was one recent player who said he chose to play in the XFL versus the NFL, and that was solely he was going to be on the bench in the NFL versus starting in the XFL, and that is probably solely to increase his stock to eventually start again in the NFL.
Well, yeah, it's a business move. That's the thing with the XFL. There are some talented players that, to your point, they're probably back end of the roster guys that might play on special teams, but some of these guys are like, well, I'm never going to really show my skills unless I do this. So I give those guys a hats off, because you know what? If you can get some extra film out there to show you that you can play a certain position,
and all these sports, they have purpose. I just don't understand where they have purpose. I don't understand how these football ones always get to the head of the line on national television.
I'll stop you there. I think there's only one alternative at this point. Like XFL, USFL, they're not both going to work. If anything's going to work, it's going to be XFL, I feel like, at this point.
I guess my thing is, in general, like I said, I understand their purpose, and I understand there's even ones that I saw on YouTube, like indoor football leagues, a few indoor football leagues, whether it be the official arena football, which I hear is coming back.
There's football leagues in Mexico. Like I'm as a Dallas Cowboys fan, I know we've talked about that before. One of the former Cowboys players, Terrence Williams, who played at Baylor in college, I've been following him for years. I saw him pop up in I think he was in near Tijuana, Mexico, in the Mexican football league. I'm like, I didn't even know that existed.
But I guess my thing with any of these major ones, I don't understand why they go to the front of the line when it comes to television programming. Like, why when somebody starts up a new baseball league, it's not Fox, ABC, NBC. It's like on this IFL. It went right to YouTube.
Well, because football is the sport in America.
Just seeing that Memphis thing, saying like, listen, I get it. There's 10,000 people at a football game. There's 10,000 people at Grambling football games. There's there's low amounts of football all over the place. But if you turn on any of these southern mid-major colleges on a Saturday, they're not on NBC. What I mean?
No, it's football.
So why is Memphis versus
because they
Shreveport?
They brand this as professional football, and when you get that's the key. Professional and football in America, it just works, man. It's just how it is. It's like hockey in Canada. You can have all these different leagues. Like hockey better than I do, but aren't there like OHL or all KHL and different like in Russia? Like
I will say though, again, those have a lot more purpose because they're a certain level of player that is like a developmental leagues and stuff like that.
Well, the XFL is like that, but unofficially. There's no partnership between the XFL and NFL. Hey, if we like what you the NFL's like, hey Rock, if we like some of the concepts you're doing, it seems like it's working, we're gonna probably steal it from you. But besides that, there's no actual agreement in place. So essentially these leagues are two separate entities. But to your point just a few minutes ago, there was a guy that said, hey, I'm going to barely play in the NFL because I'm a back end of the roster type guy. But hey, I can make my star shine brighter by playing the XFL, getting some more tape, getting some more reps. That's the point of it. It is a developmental league, even if they're not affiliated.
I will say one thing when it comes to television and when it comes to money spent on programming for TV, and that is WWE. They're not like the USFL or XFL. They're not putting them out there in the hopes of making money. They're currently making money, and other suitors are out there looking for them.
Hey, other suitors that might have other big-time wrestling companies also under their umbrella now, too.
Well, again, I mean, you can't deny we talk about developmental leagues, and I'm not dearly saying that about AEW or anything like that.
No.
But I will say that when WWE comes calling, even if you do have an agreement with AEW, you're going to listen. And Warner Brothers currently is showing interest in either both Raw and or SmackDown properties to bring to their Warner networks. Enough so even saying that they could potentially find Raw maybe on another night. Now, I guess my question is, obviously if the price is right, whatever. But if you were, let's say, working with WWE, and obviously you want your brand to have the best options, right? If USA offers you, I don't know, whatever the it's in the billions, right? It's the $1 billion figure. USA offers you $1 billion for Monday Night Raw on Monday nights. Continue the partnership, continue doing exactly what you're doing. Or Warner Brothers, for example, wants to put Monday Night Raw on TBS or TNT or one of their stations and says, we'll give you $1.1 billion and we're going to move Monday Night Raw to Tuesdays because Monday's not really, work out great for us, and we're going to move it to Tuesday nights. If you're WWE, and obviously you want what's best for your product as well, because it if it fails on a TV station, they not just lose money, but you lose money as well, because you're going to have to then resell that when that contract is up. You're going to have to say, why, Sci-Fi, why you should take Monday Night Raw. Well, why would we take it? We just saw it fail over here. Would you take that offer? Would you move your stuff if it's a similar offer, or if it's just a tad bit more, or does Monday night mean a lot to you for Raw?
Yeah, to me, the numbers would have to be crazy, astronomically different, like where you're going to essentially double what the contract is with, say, USA, which obviously they've been the home of WWE programming for 30 years now. So it's, to me, I can't see it happening, but you can never say never, because in the television world, we've seen some crazier things happen. And here's the thing: Warner Brothers Discovery. If you're not aware, you named a couple networks, TNT and TBS. What wrestling promotion has those has the name on TBS? Their shows on TBS.
Well, yes,
TNT.
AEW has those currently as well, and WCW used to.
So what say you on this? Could you see a potential scenario where WWE is like Mondays and Fridays, and then they maybe move AEW around? Could you see them both working together as they? So essentially, what I'm saying is Warner Brothers Discovery corners the market.
No, I don't,
No?
and here's why. And it's not necessarily because I couldn't see AEW and WWE working together, but the fact that we're talking,
even if the money's crazy.
Well, here's the issue that we're having, and the fact that Warner Brothers is already saying, "Hey, we'll fit you in where we can fit you in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and other places," shows you that they necessarily wouldn't even have the room. They don't even have the room right now. They're kind of saying.
Here's the thing: you're forgetting for a second. You like that. What does that tell AEW and Tony Khan? Like, hey, WWE would be interesting, so maybe we might have to kick you to the curb. Like, how does that? If that news comes out, even if it's just Warner Brothers Discovery just sniffing around WWE, what kind of impression, how do you explain that to AEW and Tony Khan?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, again, money is money, and if, I don't think AEW would be homeless. I don't think that would be a concern. I think they would find a place.
If there's one avenue, and WWE,
and they got that deal with Warner Brothers, so even if Warner Brothers kicks them out, they still,
they still
money's
got
money. Yes.
Well, here's another thing with, obviously, the world of streaming. More and more people are cutting the cord, getting all these different streaming services. You have it, I have it. Everybody I know just about has a streaming service. What I was reading today, interestingly enough, is WWE and ESPN might be kicking the tires on some projects together, which, that on the surface might not mean like a big deal when it comes to is WWE going to ESPN? I don't think that's happening, obviously, in the near future. But with the way streaming is, and obviously how WWE, the network that they used to have, was kind of the forefront and how they distributed pay-per-views and stuff. Could you see, with the UFC and Endeavor situation, could you see in the near future WWE programming exclusively on ESPN Plus?
No. I still think that they hold a big stake in having it on regular television. And to kind of say one thing about the Warner Brothers thing, and this is why I necessarily don't feel great about WWE going to the Warner Brothers networks, is because they're kind of already in what this person is saying. If they're even mentioning this and they're talking about the competition on Monday night, it shows that they're not really in the wrestling business to what they think that they are, and that they're not really WWE is going to command a high dollar, and they're going to command high respect. So if you're a company that is saying, Monday Night Football and there's a lot of sports on Monday night, we might need to move you to Tuesday night so we don't have that competition. You should be taking WWE and saying that we are going head to head with those other things. That's what they've always done. And I understand WWE has failed in a lot of those avenues, but they've also succeeded in a lot of those avenues. So if you're taking a property that you right away are kind of like, we shouldn't put you up against that, you'll definitely lose. WWE is probably, I would say if I was WWE and the confidence that they have in being a $9 billion company right now, I would say, you're going to take us off Monday night. Why? Because of Monday Night Football. Then what are you saying? Are you saying that we're not as good as Monday Night Football? You should say we're taking you and we want you on Monday night to go against Monday Night Football because we hold you in such high regard. I'm not going to take a sports team and think that I'm going to take this sports team to the Super Bowl or the World Series or the moon and then immediately be like, I don't want to play the Yankees. Get them off our schedule. I don't want to play the Dallas Cowboys. That's a tough schedule. You want to go head to head with those guys because this is a $9 billion company and they command that respect. If you're buying them and already shying away and trying to put them and maneuver them around to not have competition, then what do you, can we move WrestleMania to not go against the Final Four? No, I don't think you understand. We got 80,000 people 2 nights in a row against the Final Four. If you're buying us and immediately worried and scared and kind of, like they say, scared money don't make any money. If you're already buying us and you're trying to hide us right away, it's like a girlfriend, man. If you got a hot girlfriend and she knows she wants to go out night number 1. If you're taking her and the first thing you say is let's go on a Tuesday night because it's cheaper and it doesn't cost as much money to go out and then we can kind of hide and I don't have to show you around. Then all of a sudden you're saying, well, what kind of confidence do you have in me? If you have this kind of confidence in me, you're kicking AEW to the curb. You're keeping us on Monday night. You're welcoming all and any competition.
You missed one other thing. And this whole thing, I've been sitting here thinking, I'm like, wait a second. We missed one big thing that's going on right now. The NBA playoffs. Where are they at? Oh, TNT. What did AEW just announce this week? Oh, we're moving to Saturday nights this week.
Yeah.
Interesting. WWE, now you made a great point. And that and when as you were going there, I'm like, wait a second. WWE would never say, "Oh, hey, by the way, you could kick us to another night."
They have before. Remember the dog show has moved Monday Night Raw off the USA Network once or twice a year.
Very rare.
But you can even say then, and here's the thing: WWE, as popular as they were then, and definitely more popular than that dog show, that was kind of like a friendly agreement. USA, for the most part, wasn't coming in and saying, we're going to move you from Monday nights permanently because we don't have confidence in you on Monday nights.
So here's my thing, though. If
you are coming into this television negotiation and saying, we don't have confidence in your programming on this night, how do you start conversations like that with this $9 billion
Here's the other
company?
thing, too. With AEW going to, they split time between TBS and TNT, why wouldn't it have been negotiated where, okay, we know that the NBA playoffs happen every year. That's a guarantee. We all know that's happening. So why would you even negotiate a deal to even put any of your programming on TNT knowing that's going to happen? To your point with the whole Westminster dog show thing with the USA and the WWE, you could still have AEW programming on TBS for all their shows, and the only time they get kicked off is during March Madness, which is a short stretch because the whole network, True TV, and all those properties get used for the NCAA tournament. But with the playoffs, the NBA playoffs is a long stretch. It takes a good amount of time. So you're potentially taking weeks away from the normal station. I just don't understand why they wouldn't have kept
and
on TBS.
I think the difference, obviously, between the AEW on these channels and WWE on these channels is they're trying to get WWE, which is a proven commodity. When AEW officially went to Warner Brothers was taking a chance on them. And Warner Brothers essentially set the terms, and AEW had to go, hey, that's pretty good terms for us. You're taking the chance on us. In reverse, WWE would be taking the chance on Warner Brothers to show them the respect they deserve, show them and keep their IP at what it currently is and higher. So you would be putting your hands in this Warner Brothers. You'd be putting your hands. It's not so much TBS would want to know how many people watch WWE to bring it over to them. WWE wants to know how many people watch TBS before we essentially, we're not, the driver, is looking at the guy who owns the Mustang and saying, should I drive this car? But the guy who owns the Mustang is looking at the driver and saying, should I let him drive this car?
Pretty much. I mean, that's a good analogy. To me, this whole thing is just interesting because obviously, especially with WWE, with the whole Endeavor, UFC, all that, to me, I'm just curious because UFC, and I'm going back to the ESPN Plus situation. UFC does a lot of business on ESPN Plus, and the way streaming is these days.
I can see the pay-per-views kind of going that route in the future.
I don't know if I
see Monday Night Raw and SmackDown going that route. Fox, is such a perfect vehicle for SmackDown and why it obviously gets what it gets. I don't think you get in that on ESPN Plus.
No, I think that's probably the right model. I think what'll happen is they'll work out some sort of deal and they'll keep WWE on Monday nights and Friday nights on their normal properties. And I could see it though because of that partnership. ESPN Plus, you just made a good point, for $9.99. Mm-hmm. Or whatever the price is now. I mean, they're doing all these bundles now with Disney Plus, Hulu, and everything. So now it's all about bundles. So the issue that would occur from there then is if they go to ESPN Plus for all their stuff, so they can essentially tell Peacock to pound
I would see ESPN Plus being used similar to what they use Peacock for or something like that. I don't see actual weekly programming. So many places are still yet to fully go to those routes.
So maybe like they'll have Raws or SmackDown like a month later or something like they do on like a Peacock.
Yeah, they'll have old pay-per-views or something like that. I don't see live Monday Night Raw and live Friday Night SmackDown. I kind of, it's kind of funny how they maneuver and manipulate each other because obviously when WWE went to Fox, it was, I think Fox was taking a big chance on WWE at the time. And WWE was kind of hyping themselves up. And then in turn, when they get to Fox, they've used that as a vehicle to then hype themselves up to get even bigger and now sell themselves away from Fox. So essentially, like going back to that girlfriend analogy, like I know that this girl's out of my league, but I'm going to have her take a chance on me so that when I date her, I show everyone else that I'm dating her, which then ups my stock to be like, well, he's actually pretty good because look, he's dating her. He must be better than we thought. I think that WWE wasn't $1 billion company before they went in on Fox. I think going on Fox and being on national television on a weekly basis and having those ads on NFL TV and NASCAR and XFL and everything else that Fox puts out upped WWE's IPO to then demand even more money from their next suitors.
No, that's a good analogy. You couldn't have put it any better way. I mean, you know what? I can't even touch anymore on that.